Welcome to the second part of the first tutorial of irrigation engineering. So we have covered the course M and CLO in the first part of this lecture. Uh, Now we will have the syllabus of the course, that what topic, what chapter we will cover in the irrigation engineering. So first we will have our first chapter of the water resources engineering. So in this chapter we will discuss the world water resources, the water resources of Pakistan, the water budget of Pakistan, uh, the Pakistan water availability, Indus river system, Indus water treaty, and water accord among the provinces. So in this chapter basically we will discuss that how much water is available, where it is available, what is its quantification both globally and regionally, I mean the statistics of the water resources. Then in the second chapter of irrigation engineering, we will discuss the method of the irrigation, that how we can apply artificially the water into agricultural land, and irrigation water requirement and its measurement, the basic things that irrigation water requirement and its measurement. So actually we will be finding out that how much water is required. That is the basic thing which we will need in the designing of different hydraulic structures. Okay, because designing will be depend on the discharge Q. Okay, that how much water is required. So in second chapter of this course, first we will know about the different methods of the irrigation, that how we can apply the water artificially into agricultural area for raising of different crops, and how much water will be required. That is the main thing which is required in the designing, and the planning, and how that water will be measured. And the most importantly is the irrigation water quality. Okay, that every type of water cannot be applied into the agricultural land, because then it will damage the crops. It will negatively affect the production. The irrigation and the irrigation system, the furrow, border, sprinkler, and trickle, we have different systems, we have different methods that will be discussed in this chapter, and the quantification of the irrigation water, that how much water is required. Okay, as we have discussed that the right amount of water will be supplied in the right time at the right place, and the quality, how the quality will be assessed, that either the water is suitable for the irrigation purposes or not. So that is the main point. So in this chapter we will discuss these things. Then we will have the canal. See, if you know about the requirement, that how much water is required, then based on that requirement we will design the irrigation canals. Okay, we have two approaches, the Candy approach and the Lassie's design approach. So based on these two approach we will design the irrigation canal. See, in the irrigation actually we are dealing with the four types of the hydraulic structures. The first one is the reservoirs, the storage structures. The second one is the conveyance structures, mean the canals, that how the water will be supplied from the storage reservoir into the point of utilization. And the canal lining, actually we are lining the canal to reduce the we can say that to reduce the losses, the infiltration losses. Advantages and types, maintenance of irrigation canals, that how the canal can be we can say that lined, and how it will be maintained throughout its lifetime, what are the different types, and what are the advantages of the lining. In fourth chapter of the irrigation engineering, we will have the diversion headworks. See, if we have the reservoir or the storage structures, then how the right amount of water will be diverted into the irrigation canal. Suppose if we have the irrigation canals, then how the water will be diverted into the field. So these are called the diversion structures. We have two types of structures. One are the storage structures, three types. because storage structures, conveyance structures, and divergence structures. Okay, so through divergence structures, either we can divert the water from the reservoir into the canal, or through the divergence structures we can divert the water from the canal into the field. And how the site and layout of the divergence structures, the different components and types of the divergence structures, and how they work, the functions of these structures, and how the water will be measured, mean to divert the right amount of water, to control the diversion, okay, so that to reduce the losses and also the silt into the canal from the reservoir. So for that purposes we will discuss different divergence structures. So that chapter will be mostly covers up to the midterm. Then we will have the irrigation works, introduction to canal and regulator, fall and flumes, canal outlet, cross drainage work. These are different hydraulic structures which are supplementarily constructed in the irrigation canals. To suppose falls are constructed to break the heavy velocities. Okay, if the velocity, if the slope, if there is steep slopes, then the velocity will be high, and the canals or the channels erosion will be caused. So how it will be breaked out? Flumes are used for the measurements of the water, canal outlet, cross drainage works, types and functions, monitoring of flow telemetry system. See, sometimes the water are diverted without any inspections. So how that water will be monitored to control the flow, and how that the water will be measured at each and every points. The most important part of the irrigation engineering is the water logging and salinity. Mostly why we are applying the irrigation water into an area, actually our main purpose is to get the maximum yield from the specific area. So if suppose the area is not developed, so there will be two problems. Either the water table will be near to the earth's surface. So again, if the water table is near to the earth's surface, then the root zone will be completely filled up with water. So if the root zone are completely filled up with water, then the crops will be not growing, because the aeration will be not occurring, the roots will be not getting the oxygen. So that is called the waterlogged area. So how the area will be reclaimed or developed from the water logging. Also we have the salinity problems sometime. So the area will be reclaimed or developed from the salinity. So what are the causes? Salinity is actually mean the deposition of the sodium particle, of the salts particle in the root zone or on the earth crust, which are then disturbing, which are negatively affecting the crop production. So these are the two main problems relevant to the irrigation. So the area will be developed or reclaimed from salinity through heavy irrigation, or the area will be developed or reclaimed from water logging by lowering the water table. So in this chapter we will discuss the causes and the effects of the water logging and salinity, and also some statistical data of the Pakistan, the reclamation methods, that how the area will be developed from the water logging and salinity. Drainage works are mostly used to reduce the water table, mostly in the irrigated area. And then we will have the most importantly the dams. See, in irrigation engineering, again we have the reservoir, we have the conveyance system, we have the application system, we have the distribution system. So how the water will be conserved? See, in Pakistan the rainfall is occurring, the rainfall is not occurring constantly, I mean it is variable. So in those months in which the rainfall are occurring more than the requirement, so the water will be stored. So for that purposes some storage structures will be required, and dam is one of them. Okay, so in this chapter we will discuss the types of the dam, the crest weight, mean the designing parameters, the designing characteristics of the dams, and what type of area will be selected for the dam construction, what are the different types, what are the problems during the dam construction, mean the sedimentation. Okay, and introduction to environmental impact of dams. What are the different negative impacts or positive impacts of the dams in the on the environment. So these will be our syllabus. The recommended books which we will be following is the first one is the Irrigation Engineering and Hydraulic Structures by Santosh Kumar. That is reprinted in 2006. It's 19th edition. Also, we have other books, the hydraulic structures, 4th edition, are online resources. These will be used. Other veterans book are irrigation and hydraulic structures, theory, design and practice. And the second one is the irrigation and water power engineering. So most of the contents will be covered from this one and this book's, irrigation and water power engineering. Okay, now coming to the first chapter of the water resources, that is the introduction to the water resources. That from where the water will come, what are its quantification both globally and regionally. So let's start from the basics. Let's start from the crust. That what is water? Okay, so water is an inorganic, transparent, tasteless, odorless, and nearly colorless substance, which is the main constituents of the earth hydrosphere and the fluid of the atmosphere. See, the earth hydrosphere means that portion of the earth where the water is available. Okay, that portion of the earth where water is available, that is called the earth hydrosphere. And the fluid is of most living organisms. See, water is almost 70% of our bodies are composed of the water. So water is the most important constituents of the earth hydrosphere and the most important fluids in the living organism. And these are its properties, that the water are inorganic, transparent, it is tasteless, odorless. Mean again the pure water. Okay, the pure H2O, there are tasteless, odorless and nearly colorless, and that is also that is a type of the chemical substance, mean H2O. Okay, water is not providing any amount of energy or organic nutrient to the living things, but still it is the most important one. It is the most vital constituent for the survival. See, we can survive, we cannot survive longer than food without water. Okay, if water is not available, so the human beings, the living organism cannot survive. But it not providing any calories, any energy. Okay, but if the level of the H2O is reduced in the living organism, then some water will be required to sustain, to maintain the growth of the living organism. These are the different properties. Density is 997 kilogram per cubic meter. The melting point is 0 degrees C. And the boiling point is 100 degrees C. Melting point means to converting it from the from ice into liquid, and from liquid into we can say vapor state. The formula is the H2O, formula of the water, chemical formula, because it is an inorganic chemical substance. Now see, in the earth hydrosphere, we can say that the distribution, the occurrence and the movement of water, that can be summarized through hydrological cycle. Hope you will have studied the hydrological cycle in detail in the hydrology subject. See, the main driving force of the hydrological cycle are the solar energy. Okay, the energy provided by the solar, and the we can say that the gravitational forces through which the water is coming from the clouds into the earth's surface. So here the driving force is the gravity, and here the driving force is the solar energy. See, if you have the water bodies, then with the help of the solar energy, the water will be evaporated from the liquid state into the vapor state, and in the atmosphere it is condensed and falling in the form of rain, in the form of snow, in the form of hail or sleet. And then there is two types of movement on the surface of earth or underground water. So again these types of movement of water on the surface or below the earth surface, these are governed by the gravity. If you have reservoir structures, if you have the oceans or the rivers or the or groundwater flow, so see The water is evaporated from the earth surfaces, from the water surfaces, that is called the evaporation, and also the water is evaporated from the plants, that is called the evapotranspiration. So there are different phenomena: evaporation, evapotranspiration, then there is condensation, and again there is precipitation in the moment. So all this we can say that the circulation, distribution and occurrence of the water is summarized through hydrological cycle. Now see, in a specific area, suppose if you are interested in an area, for example, if you have a specific area in which you are interested, for example, this is the university campus, for example. So from here the water will come here, so that will be the resources. Okay, that will be the resources of the water for this specific area. So the first resource for a specific area in which you are interested, that is the natural resource, that is the rainfall, the water occurring in this area in the form of the rain. Okay, so the first water resource for a specific area is the rainfall. The second water resource for a specific area are the surface water. Suppose these are the boundaries. In this area you are interested. Now from where the water will come into this area, so the first one is the rainfall. The second one is the, suppose if there is any river, if there is any stream, or if there is any canal entering into this area, so again there will be a type of resource that will be providing the water, that will be conveying the water into this specific area. And also the water can be extracted from the ground reservoir. So there are we can say that three resources of water for a specific area. Either the water will come naturally through rainfall, mean precipitations, either the water will be coming from the upstream areas, that is the surface water, or the water can be extracted from the ground reservoir. So there are the three resources of water for a specific area: the rainfall, the surface water and the groundwater. Okay, now we have some global quantification of the water. For example, if we have 100% of water globally, suppose these are the total water available in the earth hydrosphere. Okay, so in 100%, 96.5% of water are available in oceans. Remember, water are utilized for three purposes. First one is the water utilized for the domestic purposes, which we are drinking or using for the cooking purposes, mean the water which is utilized in the household activities. Second one, the water can be utilized in the industries, okay, for the industrial production purposes. The third one and main utilization of water is the water utilized in the agricultural sector. So the domestic sector, industrial sector and agricultural sector, in these three sectors we are utilizing the water. Now see, globally 96.5% of water are available in oceans and 1% of water are saline water. So see, these 1 and 96.5, 97.5% of water are not easily available for the utilization. See, for all the three sectors, for the domestic, for the industrial and for the agricultural, these 97.5% of water are not available. We cannot utilize it easily, and if you are utilizing it, some mechanical power will be required. Either you have to extract that water from the oceans, get that water from the ocean, you have to treat that water, then you will have to convey it into your requirement. So these water are not easily extractable and utilizable. The remaining 2.5%, this water is utilizable water, means this water can be used for that three types of activities: industrial, domestic and agricultural. Now out of these 2.5%, 68.6% of water are available in the glaciers and ice caps. Okay, glaciers and ice caps out of these 2.5%. So again, the water which are available in the glaciers, in the poles, on the earth pole, in the poles. So again, this water is not easily extractable. These water are not easily utilizable. Okay, and out of 2.5%, 30.1% of water are available in the ground reservoirs. So again, if you are using this groundwater, so some power will be required, okay, some mechanical energy will be required, so again you will have to pay for it. Now out of 2.5%, only 1.3% of water is easily available or extractable or utilizable. See, if you take 1.3% of this 100%, it will be less than 0.002%. Now in these 1.3%, this water is available, extractable and utilizable. 1.3% of 2.5%. Now 1.3%, 73.1% of 1.3 are available in the form of snow and ice. But remember, these amount of water are available for the human activities, for the agricultural, for the domestic and for the industrial sector. Means these water are melting and flowing in the rivers. And 20.1% water are available in the lakes and small reservoirs, mean easily accessible, and 3.5% are present in the soil moisture in the root zone. 2.5% are in the marshes. 0.46% are in the small rivers. 0.22% are in the living things. See, if you collect the amount of water from all human beings on the earth's surface, from all living things on the earth's surface, that will be 0.2% of 1.3%, which is out of 2.5%, okay, and 0.22% of water are available in the atmosphere. So these are the global statistics of the water availability. So remember, in 100% of the global water, only 2.5% of water are fresh. These can be utilized. Out of these 2.5%, 1.3% is easily available for the human activities. Okay, so these are the global statistics. Now these are the quantification. The total earth water are 1.36 million hectare meter. Hectare meter is the volumetric unit, million hectare meter. 97.2%, these are the ocean and the salt water. See, in the previous slides we have seen that there are 96.5% in the ocean and other saline water is 1%, so that are approximately 97.5%. okay, so these are the saline water. 2.8%, these are the fresh one. Out of 2.8 fresh one and 2.2 of the surface water. Now out of 2.2, there are some glaciers, lakes and other forms, but simply we can say that only easily available fresh water for the human activities are 0.3%. Now what is the problem? See, day by day the population are increasing. So if population are increasing, then the food demand will be increasing, and also the water demand will be increased, but the amount of the fresh water is constant. Okay, water is not generating, it is a constant natural resource. So if we see here, so by 2050 the world will need 55% of more water from the current demand, and 60% of more food will be required from the current demand. Now see, earth is constant, the earth's surface is constant, the water is constant, and day by day the agricultural land is decreasing due to the anthropogenic activities. We are developing the we are constructing different buildings, different structures, so the agricultural land is decreasing day by day. Population are increasing, so the water demand will be increased in 2050 by 55%, and the food demand will be increased by 60%. Mean 60% of more food will be required in 2050, and 55% of more water will be required from the current requirement in 2050. Okay, so see, the water the world population is increasing by 80 million each year. Okay, if that is the rate, so that is very alarming. So now what we will have to do, so we will have to properly manage, we have to properly conserve, we have to properly plan these 0.3% of water, so that will be the solution. Okay, Now, what are the basic facts about the surface water? See, on the surface, on the globe, the water are available either on the surface or the groundwater. One is the rainfall, which is the artificial mean of occurrence of the water. But on the Earth's surface, below the Earth's surface, either the water will be available above the Earth's surface or below. So see, the total water availability in planet Earth is constant. See, the amount of water is not changing. That is not variable. That is a constant amount of water is available. Second point about the surface water is the fresh water available on Earth is less than 1%. As we have discussed in the previous slide, that it is only, we can say that it is only 0.3%. The fresh water is only 0.3%. So see, the fresh water available on the Earth's surface is 0.3%. The major source of water supply to surface water remains to be the rainfall. Okay, the water, the surface water, from where it is occurring, what is the originating resource of the surface water? Again, that is the rainfall. Yeah, we can say that that is the precipitation. So the water is occurring in the form of rainfall or snow, in the form of snow, or in the form of the hail or sleet. Rainfall is not evenly distributed. Now again, that is the major problem in the world. Okay, that the rainfall is not evenly distributed. So there are two types of distribution of the rainfall. One is based on the space, that is called the spatial variation of the rainfall, and second one is the temporal variation. For example, 100% of the suppose in 1 year, if 100% of rainfall is occurring, so approximately 70% of rainfall is occurring in June, July and August. Okay, and the remaining 30% of rainfall is occurring in the rest of the months. Okay, so that is the problem, that the rainfall is not evenly distributed. It is variable with respect to the time, and also with in terms of the space. For example, in Pakistan, in northern areas more rainfall is occurring, and in southern part of the country less rainfall is occurring. So again, that is the spatial variation. So these are the facts about the surface water, that the total surface water is constant, that is less than 0.3%, and the major source of the surface water is the precipitation, and the surface water, yeah, we can say that the rainfall is not evenly distributed. So again, the surface water will be not evenly distributed on the Earth's surface. And these are the facts about the groundwater. See, again, the groundwater occurs below the Earth's surface. Suppose if that is the Earth's surface, so the water which is available below the Earth's surface, these are called the groundwater. Now, these water will be available in the pores of the Earth crust. Pores of the underground surfaces. Okay, so again, the characteristics and the properties of the Earth are variable. Okay, somewhere the porosity will be more, so the storage capacity will be more, and sometimes and somewhere the porosity will be less, so the storage capacity will be less. So it will affect the quantification of the groundwater. So the groundwater is, again, that is also not evenly distributed in quantity in terms of space and time. Okay, here the water will be more, but here the water will be less due to the composition of the structures of the underground surfaces. Okay, and also with respect to the time, because sometimes if rainfall is not occurring, then the recharge will be less. So if recharge is less, then the quantification of water will be, yeah, the groundwater quantification will be less. Okay. Power operated, that is the major problem. If you are utilizing the groundwater, if you are extracting the groundwater, so some power will be required for its lifting, okay, and it is impossible. See, it is impossible to provide power to irrigate entire cultivable area with the groundwater, as we will be linking our water resources into the irrigation purposes. So see, in the previous slide we have discussed that the rainfall is variable both in terms of space and time. So if rainfall is variable, then the land will be provided with some artificial means. Okay, so the water will be provided by some artificial means into that area. So again, if you are irrigating this area, so the water will be provided either from the surface resources, or the water will be provided from the ground. So see, if we are not supplying the surface water, so then it will be not possible to irrigate the whole area by the groundwater, because huge amount of energy will be required. Now that was the global water statistics or global water quantifications. Now we are discussing the water availability or the water budget of the Pakistan. See, no engineering works, no kind of irrigation engineering works can be taken without ample knowledge of the water supply. Okay, first we have to know that how much water is available, where it is available, and in which form it is available. So if you have this type of knowledge, then you can go for the irrigation engineering, then you can go for the designing of the reservoir, then you can go for the design of the storage structures, then you can go for the design of the conveyance structure, application structure, and the distribution structures. A correct estimate of available water for irrigation is precondition of success in irrigation engineering. Okay. In addition, quality and quantity of water has to be assessed before its utility. Before the utilization of the water, we have to check the quality and the quantity, that how much water is available and what is the quality. Either the water is suitable for irrigation or not. If the water is not suitable, then it will negatively affect the root zone, that it will negatively affect the soil, and see, the crop growth will be badly affected. So it is better than to provide the bad quality of water, it is better to not provide the water. Okay, so first you have to know the quantity and the quality of the water before any irrigation structure. The water supply available for agriculture is derived from freezed ice, surface storage, and ground entrapment. See, these are the main resources from where we can get the water for the irrigation purposes. Freezed ice, surface storages, the small reservoirs, small lakes or large reservoir, dams, and ground entrapment mean lifting the water from the underground. But the actual and only recharging source is the rainfall. Again, see, if you are supplying the water for irrigation from the freezed ice or from the surface storage or from the ground, the main parent resource of these resources are the rainfall, mean the precipitation. So it is thus essential to prepare water budget yearly by assessing the glaciers water available in dam and reservoir and sweet water zones of the ground entrapment. Okay, if we have to design different irrigation works, yeah, if we have to prepare the annual water budget for a specific area, so we will have to assess the glaciers, that how much water is available in the dam and reservoir, and what are the situation of the groundwater. So all these in and out are called the water budget. Okay. Actually, water budget that reflects the relationship between input and output of water through a region. Okay, suppose if you have an area, so how much water is entering into that area from the surface resources, how much water you are extracting from the ground, and how much water is occurring with the help of the rainfall. So that will be the water budget of this area. Okay, the total water budget of this area. Now, how much water is going out from that area, how much water is evaporating, yeah, how much water is, we can say that is lost in form of evaporation or evapotranspiration, and how much water is again used for the recharge. So these will be the outputs. Okay, so the relationship between the inputs and the output is called the water budget of a specific region. It is an accounting of the inflow, outflow, and storage. See, if, for example, if 100 unit of water is coming into the region, and we can say that 80 unit of water is outing from the region, so 20 units will be stored here. So this relationship, this statistics is called the water budget, yeah, the water accounting. Okay. Now we have the water availability, Pakistan water availability. So the availability of water per capita in Pakistan is decreasing every day due to the increase in population. That is the main problem, the population. Economic development, industrialization, Okay, so if you are industrializing, so we can say that the land will be developed, so the underground recharge will be reduced, the water will be lost from specific area. Okay, so the water availability will be reduced. Look at to this one. See, in 1951, the population was less than 50 million. That was approximately 35 million. So at that time the water availability was more than 5,000 cubic meter per head per year. The population is less, so more water will be available per person per year. Now see, to the census, the population is increasing. Now we are here at 2020. Okay, so the population is almost more than 200 million. So the water water availability is population, yes, population is 200, more than 200 million. And how much water is available? See, per head, that is less than 1000, that is less than 1000 cubic meter, and that is the alarming situation. Okay, globally, if the water availability is less than 1000 cubic meter per head per year, so then the country will be considered as a water stressed country. That is the global threshold limit. So already we are at water stress condition. And look at 2050, the population will be more than 300 million, and the water will be less than 500 cubic meter per head per year, and that will be very alarming. So Pakistan population has grown from 30 million in 47 to about 200 million in 2015. So as a result, at that time the water availability was 5,000 meter per capita in 1951, and now that is less than 1,000 cubic meter. Okay, because the water resources are constant. Actually, that are decreasing because we are developing the land, so the water is lost. We cannot conserve the water, and the population is increasing. So if a constant amount of water is divided into variable population by increasing population, so automatically the per capita water availability will be less. Okay, the water availability will be less. Now the Indus River system, that is the main water resource of the Pakistan. Indus is the greatest and important river of Pakistan. Mostly the water utilized in the irrigation is from the Indus basin, which flow from north to south and has a total length of 2900 kilometers. Okay, the Indus basin is passing from the northern portion of the Pakistan to the southern portion throughout the country. The eastern tributaries of the river Indus are Satluj, Bayas, Ravi, Chenab, and the Jhelum. See, the Indus basin is from the northern to the southern part of the country. So there are contributing tributaries, the water contributing, the Satluj, Bias, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, and one is the self is the Indus basin. So these are the eastern tributaries of the Indus basin, and also some water is contributed from the west side, that are the we can say that the river from the Gilgit side, the Swat river, the Kabul river, Panchkola river from the their side. So these are the western tributaries, and these are the eastern tributaries into the Indus river, and this is one of the main and important river of Pakistan, from which we are diverting the water for the irrigation purposes. See, if the water is contributing into the Indus river, so again these rivers are generated from the single drop of the rainfall. So if a single drop of rainfall is occurring in a barren land, so actually it is we can say that eroding the soil particle, and the upper portion of the Pakistan, the northern portion, that is a very fertile land. So the soil which is detached in the upper portion, and see that particle are conveyed into the lower portion, and that particle are deposited in the lower area. And here, if that agricultural land or the fertile land is eroded with the help of that water, so it will be deposited here, and it form is one of the most fertile land. Okay, due to the erosional and depositional activities of all these rivers, a vast plain area come into being, which is called the Indus plain. okay, due to that deposition, and that is one of the important and fertile plain in the world. That is the most important, most fertile area in the world. See, this is the Indus Basin irrigation system. This one is the main Indus River. Okay, this is the main Indus River flowing throughout the country from the northern part into the southern portion. Here it is dropping into the Arabian Sea. Okay, these are its western tributaries: Satluj, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, and from here the Kabul is the main western tributary of the Indus River. Here also we have the Swat River and other the Panchkola rivers from their side. These are contributing into the Indus River, and then from this Indus River the lower portion of the Sindh and Punjab that are irrigated. Okay, so this is the Indus Basin irrigation system. And remember, the approximately the average flow of the Indus Basin is 144 million acre feet. Mean currently approximately that is 144 million acre feet. Million acre feet, that is also a unit of the mean volumetric unit of water. Okay, so the average flow of the Indus Basin is from 144 to 147 million acre feet. Now see, these are the tributaries. See the Kunad River, the Kabul River, from this side the Swat River, Panchkola River, Dil River. These are contributing into Kabul, and then the Kabul is discharged into the Indus River. This is the main Indus River, originated from here, okay, and flowing throughout the country from the northern portion into the southern part. And these 5 rivers are contributing from the east side into the Indus River. Pakistan water availability. See the average annual flow of rivers of Indus Basin. Now the catchment area of the Indus Basin is 364,700 square mile. Mean the area from where the water is coming into the Indus Basin, that is called the catchment area of the Indus Basin. So that is 364,700 square mile. Where is the average annual flow across the river are given in this one. See, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj. These are the eastern rivers. Okay, and in 1922 to 61, that was its average flow. Now this is also one of the problem, that currently in 2010 and 11 the average flow of each and every river is decreasing. See, at that time that was 93 million acre feet. Now it is at 2010 that is 72, and now in 2020 that is almost 60 million acre feet. And Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj, see, each and every river is almost decreasing. From Satluj, 14 million acre feet is reduced into 2.25 million acre feet, because India is constructing some reservoirs on these structures. The Kabul, the eastern tributary. Okay, so from here almost its discharge is increased due to the seasonal variation. But if you look into the overall statistics, so in 1922 the average flow of total Indus Basin was 189 million acre feet, and in 2010 and 11 the average annual flow of the Indus River was 156.51, and now in 2020, in 2018 2019 the average annual flow of the Indus Basin was 144 to 147 million acre feet. So overall, see, that is the alarming situation. Overall the flow of the Indus River is decreasing, the demand is increasing day by day. So what we have to do now, that is the Pakistan has 3 major reservoirs. That is another problem, which have original storage capacity of 15.7 million acre feet. Originally at 1965, at the time of construction, the storage capacity was 15.74, but with the passage of time we have lost 26% till 29 and 2009, and now in 2020 that is more than 30% due to the sedimentation. Okay, see, at Tarbela Dam in 1974 its original storage capacity was this one, 9.68. Mangla was this one, Chashma was this one, The total storage capacity at that time was, at the time of original construction time was, that was 15.74, and now in 2012 the total that is 4.7. See, but now they are planning for the we can say that for the removal of the sediments, for the development. So but at 2025 again, if we see, at that time it was 15.74, in 2025 it will be 5.82, only 37%. So we have lost 63% of the storage capacity. So at one side the average flow is decreasing, at another side the storage capacity is decreasing, and the demand is increasing. So what is the solution? The planning and management, provision of right amount of water at the right place in the right time. Okay. The third one problem, the main problem, average escapages up below Kotri. Okay, Kotri is the one of the city of the Jamshoro districts of the Sindh province. So the water which flow beyond this point, then it is discharged into the Arabian Sea, then it is not in our control. Okay, so now look at to this one. See, as we have discussed that the current average annual flow of the Indus River is 144 million acre feet. Now we are only utilizing 90 million acre feet of water. So the rest of water we are discharging it into the Arabian Sea. According to the international laws, according to the international requirement, only 10 million acre feet must be discharged into the Arabian Sea. But we are discharging more than 40 million acre feet because we have no storage capacity. So that is a type of loss, that is the discharging loss into the Arabian Sea. Okay, mean we have approximately we are only utilizing 90 million acre feet, and the rest 90 million acre feet out of 144, 145, 147, and the rest of the water we are discharging it into the Arabian Sea. See, 1976, that is the average, that is the annual discharged, that is the annual discharge into the Arabian Sea. See, from 1976 to 2003, averagely we have discharged 35.2 million acre feet, and from 1976 to 2011 we have discharged 31.35 million acre feet into the Arabian Sea. Okay, and the requirement is 10 million acre feet, but we are discharging 31 million acre feet. Okay, so that is also the problem, because we have no infrastructures, we have no structures, so that water is lost without utilization. Pakistan water availability. So the water availability and demand gap. Now what is the gap? Okay, the average annual river flow is approximately 138, 144, 145 million acre feet, out of which 82% occur during summer season and 18% is occur in winter. Mean that is also the seasonal variation in the flow, out of which 104 is available at the canal head for irrigation. Mean out of 138 we are diverting 104 into the canal, so then we have some losses in the canals, mean the conveyance losses. Okay, so again the water is lost. Look at this one. See, that is the demand and gap. See, at 2000 the agricultural water requirement was this one. Now at 2020 the agricultural water demand is increasing. See, the population is increasing, the food demand is increasing. So if we have to get the more amount of food from the given area, so we have to grow more crops, more water will be required for its growth. That is the industrial, because in Pakistan, see, the area is developing, urbanization is occurring. So for the economical development we are installing different industries. So for the industries the water requirement will be increased. So at that time this much amount of water was required. Now the water demand is increasing, see, for industrial purposes. And for municipal, see, population is increasing, so the water demand is also increasing. The municipal water requirement and the environmental water requirement for other landscaping and for the human activities. If we look into the total demand, so in 2000 this much water was required, and at 2025 and 2020-2030 this much water will be required. You see, that is the difference, that is the demand. Now we have to look into that one, that how much water will be required at 2030, how much water will be required at 2050, and how much water is available. So then we have to deal with it, we have to plan, we have to manage, we have to conserve the water. Either we will be in deep difficulties. Pakistan water availability, current and future water requirement. These are the statistics. Just see, presently if we look into 2020, so our present requirement is, agricultural requirement is 115, but at 2025 that will be 119, because more food will be required, so we will be irrigating, we will be growing more area, so more water will be required for the agricultural purposes. See, also the industrial requirement is increasing, the municipal is increasing, the environmental is increasing. So overall, if currently 130 million acre feet is required, at 2025 136 million acre feet will be required. So these are the situations, these are the scenarios, that at one hand the requirement is increasing, and at another hand the availability is decreasing, because the average annual flow of the Indus River is decreasing and the demand is increasing. So what is the solution? That is the management and the planning. Okay, we will discuss these things in detail, that how the water will be managed. So in irrigation engineering, now from the conventional method we are moving into the modern and technical methods to conserve the water. For example, अगर आपके पास एक एरिया है, ओके, अगर आपके पास एक एरिया है, तो अगर सरफेस से आप वाटर अप्लाई कर रहे हैं, तो सपोज इसके लिए 100 गैलन ऑफ वाटर रिक्वायर्ड है, इसके लिए 100 गैलन ऑफ वाटर रिक्वायर्ड है. And suppose if you have the same area, and if that water is applied by some modern and technical methods, then if you reduce the evaporation losses, infiltration losses, then possibly that area will be irrigated only by 50 unit of water. So the 50 unit is conserved. So that gap will be incorporated by this means. Okay. Now these are the, again, that is the demand. Okay, that at that time 1951, at 1947, see, that was the water availability, 5,000, more than 5,000 cubic meter per head per year. At 2020, in current situation, this much water is available, 877 cubic meter per head is available per 1 year. In 2030 that will be 751, and at 2050 that will be less than 500, because population is increasing, the water availability is decreasing, as we have seen in the previous slides, that the storage capacity is decreasing, the average annual flow of the Indus River is decreasing, and the population is increasing, demand is increasing, so the per unit water availability will be decreased. So that is the gap. Look at to this one, see this curve, that is the population. At that time the population was 34 million. Now the population is increasing. See, the population is increasing. Now the population is at 2050 the population will be more than 300 million, and at that time this much water was available per head. Now at the population reached, at 2050 the population reached into more than 300 million, then the water availability will be less than almost 600 cubic meter per head per day. Okay, and the global standard is 1000 cubic meter. If 1000 cubic meter of water is available per head per year, then it is at least then it is a safe side. Conclusion and recommendation. Now from the previous discussion, what we can do. Pakistan water resources are diminishing at an alarming rate, as can be concluded from the previous statistics. Now to improve the situation, we have to, what are the conclusion and recommendation? Surplus water of at least 18 million acre feet is available for immediate development. As we have discussed that the average annual flow of the river is 144 million acre feet, and we are utilizing only 90 to 100 million acre feet of water. So the rest of water we are directly discharging it into the Arabian Sea, so it is a form of loss. So that water can be utilized if we develop some infrastructure. Second one, sedimentation of the existing reservoir. See, we have also discussed that the storage capacity of the already existing reservoirs are decreasing. So if we control that sedimentation, okay, if we control that sedimentation, so the reservoir capacity will be increased, so the water storage will be increased, then the more water will be available. It is strongly recommended that the construction of storage of ready project of reservoir and hydropower should be started immediately. Okay, we have only limited number of the reservoir, so we have to construct more storage structure, more new storage structure, so that to reduce the losses. And also, the most importantly, which will be discussed in this course, to use the high efficiency irrigation system like drip and sprinkler system that need to be developed. Okay, because if you are directly applying the water into agricultural area by surface means, so that is the major portion of the water is lost. See, if you are directly applying the water in flooded portion, in flooded form, in surface irrigation method, then almost we can say that 60 to 70% of water is lost in infiltration, in evaporation, and in other means. So if that losses can be reduced by drip and sprinkler system, so we have to go for this technology. Now the Indus Water Treaty. See, again, that is also one of the problem, that most of the Pakistan Indus River water is coming from the eastern side, which is the lifeline of Pakistan. Okay, there are majorly 5 tributaries, mean the Chenab, the Ravi, Bias, and the Satluj. Now, after the division of the subcontinent, Pakistan and India, that created a new international boundaries. So first first there was only one boundary, so the whole water was utilized within these boundaries. But after 1947, that was divided into portion. So now what you will have to do with the water, how much amount of water will be utilized by which country. So that was the problem. So after a year of mounting tension, India and Pakistan signed the Indus Water Treaty in 19 September 1960, which consists of 12 articles and 8 appendices. Okay, to budget the water, to distribute the Indus Basin water, that how much water will be utilized by India and how much water will be utilized by Pakistan. The treaty defined the principle for sharing water of Indus River system between the two countries. Okay, and after that one, then there was a problem that how much water will be utilized by the 4 provinces of the Pakistan out of the share in the Indus water. So then in 1991, the water apportionment accord was signed among the provinces. So that was the first attack from the India in 1948, that they have stopped the water into the Pakistan, and the agricultural sector was going to affect. So at that time, the President of Pakistan, Ayub Khan, with the help of the World Bank, signed an agreement with the India, which is called the Indus Water Treaty. And the main points of that treaty were that the Pakistan will be obtained exclusive right on these 3 rivers, Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab. Mean the whole water of these 3 rivers will be utilized by Pakistan, and India has given the right of the Ravi, Bias, and Satluj. Mean the whole water of these 3 rivers can be utilized by India, and the whole water of these 3 rivers can be utilized by the Pakistan. And also there was another point that the water supply of these 3 rivers will be uninterrupted, completely uninterrupted, only for 10 years. So at that time, the President Ayub constructed three major reservoirs, the Warsak, Mangla and Tarbela. A system of 8 length canal were constructed, and the remodeling of the existing canal were carried out. 5 barrages were constructed at that time. Now, after the Indus Water Treaty, there was a problem among the provinces that how the Indus water will be distributed among the provinces. So the Indus River System Authority Act was promulgated in 1992. The object was to distribute the water among the provinces. So according to that act, see, 117.35 million acre feet water from the Indus River is distributed among all the provinces, because that much amount of water will that much amount of water was available for the utilization of the provinces. So out of 117.35 million acre feet, 47.7% of water was allocated for the Punjab. Now remember, these allocations are based on the population. This allocation are based on the agricultural area. This population is based on the demand. This population is based on the availability of the natural resources, for example the rainfall. So the climatic condition, the population, the agricultural land, these were the factors through which the water was distributed among the provinces. So out of 117.35 million acre feet, the 47.7% of water was allocated into Punjab. That was 55.94 million acre feet, of which 37 million acre feet will be in Kharif. There are two seasons, Kharif and Rabi season, so 37 will be in Kharif and 18.9 million acre feet will be in Rabi. And 117 out of 117.35 million acre feet, 41.5% or 48.67 million acre feet was allocated to Sindh province. 8.87% was 8.87 million acre feet was allocated for Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and 3.87 was allocated for the Balochistan. Now remember, this allocation is based on the climatic condition majorly, because see, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in northern areas, annual rainfall is more than the Sindh and in the Punjab. So its allocation will be automatically maximum. Its area is more, population is more, so its demand will be more. And there is also one of the point that why less amount of water is allocated into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. See, 8.78 million acre feet of water is allocated into KPK out of 117.35 million acre feet, but KPK is only utilizing 5.78 million acre feet. The rest of the water, see, KPK is getting 8.78 million acre feet and utilizing 5.78 million acre feet. The rest of the water is lost due to the lack in infrastructure. Mean no infrastructure is available, no reservoir are available, no canal systems are available. Similarly, for the Balochistan, 3.05 million acre feet of water is allocated, but they are only utilizing 3.87 million acre feet. They are only utilizing 3.7 million acre feet. So that is the problem, that why the countries are getting less amount of water. Now see the water budget of Pakistan. Okay, so we were discussing about the water budget of Pakistan. So see, as we have discussed that there are 47.7% water allocation, almost 55.9% of water to the Punjab province, for the Punjab province. Mean that is its allocation. It is almost 56 million acre feet out of 117.35 million acre feet. Now Look into this one. See, 56 million acre feet of water is diverted from the Indus River according to 1991 accord among the provinces to the Punjab. That is the water budget of the Punjab province. Now see, that water is diverted from the Arabian Sea. So in 56 million acre, that is the allocation. Okay, only 50 million acre feet is diverted. Mean Punjab province allocation is 56%, but they are only diverting 50%, 50 million acre feet. Sorry, okay. Its allocation is 56, but they are taking 50. Why? Because there is due to the lack of infrastructure. Out of 50 million acre feet, 13 million acre feet are lost in the canal. These losses will be in terms of evaporation losses, infiltration losses, seepage losses, other losses. Okay, so 13 million acre feet of water is lost. So how much is available? 37 million acre feet water is available at Moga. Moga is that point at which the water is diverted into the water course from the main canal. Okay, from the main canal into the feed water courses, that is called the Moga. So 11 million acre feet water are is lost in the water courses. So 26 million acre feet of water is available at the feed point, mean the point at which the water is entering into the field. Okay, so then they are extracting how much? 33 million acre feet of water is extracted from the groundwater, and that is very much alarming, because our groundwater reservoir are reducing day by day. So 33 and 26, 59 million acre feet of water is available at the field. Now also there is field losses, because the water is not properly distributed in the field. Some portion of the earth is heavy irrigated, so infiltration losses is occurred. Yeah, if openly you are flooding the field area, so evaporation losses will be more. So 21 million acre feet of water is lost in the field. So 38 million acre feet of water is available in the field. Okay, now 7 million acre feet of water is contributed from the rainfall. So 45 million acre feet of water is available for the crop, but for the Punjab province the water requirement is 65 million acre feet. So almost there is 20 million acre feet of difference. Mean 65 is demand, that is requirement, and 45 is only available. So as in the previous slides we have discussed that at 2050 the food demand will be increased. So how it will be achieved? So if you provide 65 million acre feet of water, if you fulfill this requirement, then more food will be obtained from the area, and that requirement, that food demand will be overcome. So see, 56 is the allocation. They are only getting 50 million acre feet, 13 are lost in the canal, so 37 are available for the water courses, 11 are lost in the water courses, so only 26 is available at the field point, 33 is extracted from the groundwater, so 21 are lost in the field, only 38 is available, 7 is contributed from the rainfall. Now see, if the losses are reduced by 100%, so see, 56 is available from the Indus River, 33 is extracted from the ground reservoirs. Okay, 7 will be contributed from the rainfall. So 7 and 33, that is 40 plus 56, 96 million acre feet of water is available, and demand is 65. We have surplus water, we have more water, but we have no planning, we have no management. More portion of the water. See, 96% of water is available, and we are only utilizing 45%. 45 million acre feet, mean more than 50% of water is lost. See, that was the Punjab budget, the water budget for the Punjab province. That is the whole mean annual river flow of the Pakistan. Okay, there is 12 billion cubic meter losses are occurred in the river. Okay, Flow to the sea is 33 billion cubic meter. Requirement is 10, but we are discharging 33. Okay. Mean annual canal is 130. The diversion from the rivers, yeah, the diversion into the irrigation canal is 130. Now 33 are lost in the canal. So actually these are the parameters to which we have to play. We have to reduce these losses. If these losses are controlled and the area is developed for the agricultural purposes, so then the water will be properly utilized, the food demand will be overcome. Okay, and also then there will be no need for the groundwater extraction, so the ground reservoirs and the ground resources will be conserved. Okay, so that is the water demand. See, water stress level, Pakistan is at higher level, mean water stress. Water budget of Indus River Basin. Average annual flow of the Indus Basin is 140 to 150. We are only diverting 103, means 70%. Why? Because we have no infrastructures. We can divert up to 130 million acre feet, but we have no structure. So how we will divert it? So the rest of the 30 million acre feet is lost into the Arabian Sea. Now see, out of 103, 77 is diverted into the canal. The rest of the 26 million acre feet is lost in the canal in infiltration and evaporation. Now from the field gate, 54 million acre feet, that difference is lost in the water courses. So this much is then contributed from the groundwater. So this much amount of water is available for the irrigation in the field point. Okay. So this is the water budget. Now the water supply available to agriculture is derived from the three main resources which we have discussed. That is the direct rainfall occurring on the agricultural land, okay, direct rainfall from the atmosphere, and the surface water, mean the rivers, yeah, the Indus river systems, and the water which is extracted from the ground. So these three are the main water resources of the Pakistan. Rainfall is normally inadequate. Now see, mean rainfall is not occurring uniformly throughout the country. So that is, there is spatial variation in the rainfall, and also there is temporal variation in the rainfall. Mean in some part of the in some month of the year more rainfall is occurring, in some month of the year less rainfall is occurring. So that is variable. Also the rainfall is variable in terms of the space. Mean in northern areas more rainfall is occurring, in southern areas less rainfall is occurring. So that is we can say that rainfall is inadequate for the agricultural production, mostly in semi-arid conditions, because Pakistan is occurring mostly in the semi-arid condition where the rainfall is insufficient for the agricultural production. The irrigation water is a diminishing source in Pakistan and the whole world. Thus its proper harvesting, proper storage, proper management and utilization is required for the present and future generation. As we have discussed the gaps, the requirement, the future demand, and the current availability of the water. So what we have to do? We have to do some planning. We have to do the proper designing of the storage, conveyance, distribution, and application structure, so that the losses are reduced. So then that threat will be reduced. Okay, so this was all about the irrigation. That was all about the water resources, the global water resources, and the regional water resources, the Pakistan water resources. Also we have discussed the water budget of Pakistan, the Pakistan water availability, the Indus river system, the Indus water treaty, and the water accord of the provinces. Okay, so inshallah in next part of the first lecture we will be going towards the irrigation.